Welcome to The Bottom Line, where we examine trending and important news. Poverty statistics from the World Bank's fact sheet on Guyana, which were cited by Leader of the Opposition, R.P. Thornton, as an indication that inequality and poverty has climbed, have been updated to note that the figures at reference are from 2019, a period during which the APNU-AFC coalition was in government. The update to the fact sheet statistics were pointed out by Vice President Dr. Bart Jagdeo. He lambasted the opposition leader for trying to pin the report's statistics on the People's Progressive Party Civic when it's the APNU-AFC that must answer for the country's poor statistics in the report.
So Norton talks about poverty, but he doesn't want you to tackle the things that really, in the long run, would address poverty, which is a diversified, robust economy, not just reliant on oil and gas, which is what we are trying to do to put in the infrastructure for. So even the agricultural sector, the intermediate savannas, opening up new crops, etc. And it is a solid, robust social sector where we are investing in people's health and education. So Norton quoted, he discovered, someone sent him this document and he discovered the World Bank report. And he made a big issue about it. Guyana Nationals head and he read it out. This is what he read at his press conference. So he spoke about the population living below $5.5 a day is among the highest in Latin America and the Caribbean region at around 48%. Poverty rates are highest in the sparsely populated interior hinterland, where communities have limited access to economic opportunities. And then he said this: in less than 2 years, the PPP government has brought this country to a point where inequality and poverty have climbed. So the World Bank issued a clarification on their report, and the World Bank said, we're talking about 2019 data. Now, so I wonder what he's gonna say. But he's a shameless man. He'll come here and bluster his way through the whole press conference, and the next time you talk to him, and he wouldn't acknowledge that it's foolish to make that point. Utterly foolish. He didn't look at the time series data, because we know that they haven't done any survey recently. And so it had to be old data.
Senior Minister in Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, also characterized the opposition as yet another display of its customary incompetence, ineptitude, and dishonesty.
It would be recalled, of course, that this is a party that watched the world squarely in its eyes and said that 33 is not greater than 32. To give perhaps the most extreme example. So to all and sundry around the world, the APNU's incompetence, ineptitude and dishonesty would not come as a surprise. Mr. Norton's use of the World Bank poverty statistics falls squarely within this categorization, because in his haste to paint Guyana and the People's Progressive Party civic government in a negative light, he cited poverty statistics without bothering to inquire the nature of the statistics, the background to the statistics, the source of the statistics, the manner in which they were computed, the manner in which they should be interpreted, and in fact at the most basic level without even bothering to find out the year to which the statistics related.
Guyana must be mindful of the few who continue to peddle the false narrative of discrimination and racism in Guyana. Member of Parliament and attorney at law Sanjeev Tatidin made the call during his weekly program, The Thursday Agenda. He was making reference to statements made during a recent town hall meeting in Brooklyn, New York, organized by the People's National Congress reform activist and extortion accused Rickford Burke.
So we have this gentleman who holds what he says is a diaspora event. At that event, he portrays a country that does not exist. He portrays events that are patently false. He refers to situations that are lies. He has not been here for more than a decade or longer. He, as I understand it, we all saw the Vice President's press conference today. He has not returned to Guyana because of whatever situations happened in his past. He might have been part of the Desmond Hoyt administration or part of a political administration at that time. There were questions and queries about matters, and he's left, never returned. There are people in Guyana who have been, because of the things he's been saying and doing, are trying to sue him. They can't find his address. He will never come to this country. And there are people who allege that monies are owed. There are extortion schemes that involve the Guyana Police Force is involved with, trying to extort a businessman, to blackmail a businessman, to not publish a very disparaging story about that businessman, which is false.
Several government ministers have also denounced this shameful trend by the opposition of divisive politics and have exposed the inaccuracies with facts. Recently, Minister within the Housing Ministry, Susan Rodriguez, had to respond to another one of the opposition leader, Aubrey Norton's, misguided statements. Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Susan Rodriguez, has made it clear that the PPPC government has never built one-bedroom homes under its housing program to be sold to Guyanese. She was at the time responding to opposition leader Aubrey Norton, who recently labeled one-bedroom homes in Prospect, East Bank, Demerara as chicken coops and inadequate for families. While agreeing that the homes are indeed too small for families, Minister Rodriguez reminded Norton that the 400 square foot homes were built by his party in 2019 and sold for $4 million under the guise of providing housing for poor people.
Now he made very derogatory remarks. There are people and there are families who are living in those homes. I agree. The homes are too small. I wouldn't refer to them as a chicken coop as he refers to it as. Derogatory remark. He thinks he's somehow hitting the PPP program. But this is why I understand why the Vice President has to refer to this man as a junior functionary, because he doesn't seem to know his own track record, his own party's track record of what they did when they were in office. Those houses were built by the coalition government. In 2019, a 400 square feet home for $4 million. The PPPC has never built a home for 400 square feet and sold to people. We have a 400 square foot home under an IDB program that is given to people for almost free of cost. All they pay is $100,000.
Government has decided to auction 14 blocks ranging from 1,000 to 3,000 square kilometers each, with the majority measuring closer to 2,000 square kilometers. 11 of these blocks will be located in the shallow area, while the other 3 will be in the deep sea area. This announcement was made by Vice President Dr. Bart Jagdeo, who said the new fiscal regime will not only govern the award of contracts to successful bidders, but also the subsequent public sharing agreement for any other exploration that is already taking place in the other areas, including Kaichor.
So under the current PSA, the gross revenue every year, now when at the beginning of the contract, this is before you've fully covered cost. 75% goes to cost oil and 25% to profit oil, of which we get 12.5%, and then we get another 2% on royalty. So we get 14.5%. The company gets, that's of gross. The company now in the early years, they get 10.5. That takes you up to the 25% available for distribution as profit and royalty. Under the current scenario, with a cap of 65%, 35% remains to be divided. So at a 50-50 profit share, you get 17.5% of the gross, and then another 10% royalty. So you get 27.5%. So of a gross at the beginning. And then you have the 10% on the profit. So this is how it will work. So it shifts significantly. So this now, as I said before, IHS Markit has been our advisors, and they said even with this we're very competitive, and we're also, our basin has been de-risked, fines here, etc.
To make the bidding process more competitive, government has also decided to allow local and international companies to bid with the technical and financial qualifications to be met.
We don't want them to be too onerous, but people have to meet some minimum qualifications. The qualifications will be more stringent for the ultra deep area, the 3 blocks in the ultra deep area, because it requires only few companies can really work there. So the pre-qualification, or not the qualification, but the minimum requirements there to bid will be much greater than in the shallow. We're putting in there a minimum signature bonus of $20 million per block in the ultra deep area, and it will be $10 million in the shallow area. So that will be a financial minimum, that whoever bids, that is the lowest you can come in at. If you win a bid, you'd have to pay that money over as a signing bonus.
In addition, government will be tightening the relinquishment provisions.
In the deep, it's because of the complexity, you would have 10 years. So at first, initial 3 years for both shallow and deep for the seismic. And at that time, when you move on to phase 2 now, after the first 3 years, you have to relinquish 50% of the block.
The public hearings of the Commission of Inquiry into the March 2nd, 2020 general and regional elections have begun. Chief Elections Officer of GCOM, Vishnu Prasad, was the first to testify in front of the Commission. While explaining the electoral process, Prasad highlighted what exactly was in the ballot boxes used by the Guyana Elections Commission during the 2020 general and regional election.
The only documents that are placed in the ballot box are the marked ballots.
No. The marked ballots, the unmarked ballots which might have been remaining, which were unused ballots, spoiled ballots, rejected ballots, and those type of things go into that. In separate envelopes. The marked lists that were used by the presiding officer goes into that ballot.
No statutorily required document is placed in that box.
As in, if you mean, in this case, statement of poll, the answer is no. because the ballot is a statutory document they use.
One of the most startling revelations made by the CEO when he was asked whether video footage captured by surveillance cameras installed at Ashman's building, which served as the office of the district for returning officer Claremont Mingo, was available for review. This footage would have been able to distinctly show what took place in the Ashman's building during the tabulation of votes when the rigging attempt unfolded. Here's what Passat had to say.
No, I am not aware that any such footage is available. In fact, I did inquire. I was informed that the cameras were installed in that building on the instructions of the chief election officer. That might have been done by a private service provider. Nobody seems to know when the cameras were removed nor where the footage might be. And in terms of records, may I venture that when I assumed office in the office of the chief election officer, where the computers which should have had information or could have had information in that regard, all of the computers were wiped clean.
Former Police Division 4A Commander Edgar Thomas on Friday said that a number of security decisions were made without his knowledge during the 2020 elections fiasco, and that he was later punished for refusing to carry out instructions of his superiors who were acting in support of the then Deputy Chief Elections Officer Roxanne Myers. In his testimony before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the matters relating to the 2020 general and regional elections, Commander Thomas said that some members of the police top brass had roles to play in the happenings at the Ashman building, where the Guyana Elections Commission's command center was housed. In one instance, Chairman of the COI, retired Justice Stanley John, appeared in disbelief at Thomas's chilling recollection of what took place. Thomas told the COI of attempts that were made to clear the building. Although he was dressed in his uniform, Thomas said he believed that the instructions were also directed to him.
Miss Roxanne Myers was up on the upper floor, or the first floor, from the ground floor.
Right. Was she saying anything?
Yes, she was saying that they need to vacate the building. People need to vacate the building.
And was she giving a reason for wanting people out of the building?
No reason was given at the time.
Was she speaking in a soft voice, a loud voice? How was she speaking?
She was shouting in an aggressive manner.
You heard Miss Myers shouting. Do you recall what she was saying to the persons who were there, whom she wanted out?
She wanted everyone there to get out.
No, she couldn't have been saying that. What I'm speaking about direct language. Do you remember what she said?
She said, I want you all out of the building.
I want you all out of the building.
Yes.
He then had a conversation with Commissioner Gunraj about securing SOPs and elections materials.
So did Miss Myers remain on the upper floor while you were there?
She came down to the lower floor.
And when she came down to the lower floor, did she have any interaction at all with the commissioner who was there?
The commissioner was trying to get over to her that...
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Commissioner was trying to...
Commissioner C.S. Gunraj was trying to get over to Ms. Roxanne Myers that they need to protect the statement of rule, to secure it.
And what was Ms. Myers' response?
Ms. Myers actually did not pay any attention to Mr. Gunraj's concern. She was more inclined to getting people out of the office.
And when you say she was more inclined to getting people out of the office, was she speaking? Was she moving people out of the way? What was she doing?
She engaged the police to get people out of the building.
Myers subsequently telephoned his superior Graham to relate that he was not complying with her instructions to get people out of the building. Before that, Thomas said he noticed Azor approaching his direction and heading towards Myers.
Now, had you asked Senior Superintendent Azor to come to Ashman's building?
He was there, but I didn't ask him for any assistance at the time.
Okay.
Or give him any instruction to do anything.
And did he reach Miss Myers?
No. After making face-to-face contact with me, he diverted.
Do you know where he went?
No. I know he was still somewhere around in the building.
According to Thomas, the police also received a report of a bomb threat. Upon receiving the report, Thomas related that he was instructed that everyone evacuate the premises for their safety.
Persons in the tabulation did not comply. I think maybe only GCOM staff, few GCOM staff that I spoke with, including Madam Chairperson of GCOM, complied.
And who was the chairperson of GCOM at that time?
It was
Justice former Justice Claudette Singh?
Yes.
Yes. So how did you know that the persons complying were GCOM employees?
Well, I know that the chair was Madam
Yes.
Claudette Singh, Justice Claudette Singh.
Yes, the other employees, were they in a GCOM uniform or something?
And they were carrying a GCOM card.
A GCOM ID tag?
ID card.
Yes.
Thomas said the call was later traced to a house in Georgetown. The call was made by a relative of a deputy permanent secretary who he could not immediately remember. The individual, Thomas said, was arrested and released on bail. What happened afterwards, Thomas was unable to say.
You don't know?
No, because I was removed from being the commander of that division.
At this point, Thomas said Myers began to ignore him and started to communicate directly with Azor. Thomas told the COI that although he did not request additional support at the time, about 8 members of the special branch were seen around the building based on instructions given by Myers.
And they enter the building, get into the top floor in the presence of Miss Myers.
They entered and went to the top floor
Yes.
in the presence of Miss Myers?
Yes.
Well, did Miss Myers then ask them to leave the building?
At no time. My action since that I was still in charge of that security, my intention or I attempted to evict them out of the building. Those 8 persons.
Who was the head of special branch at that time?
Deputy Commissioner Mr. Nigel Oppie.
According to Thomas, there was no need for the presence of special branch ranks. While it all unfolded, Gunraj continued to stretch on the protection of the SOPs and other elections-related material. Subsequently, the situation worsened when Thomas received a call from the Commissioner of Police, Leslie James, who supported Graham's case that persons needed to be evacuated from the building.
I indicated to the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Leslie James, that we have an issue with security of the statement of poll and other election-related materials.
And what was his response to that, if any?
He was forcing his point that they must pay the money.
When you say they, who did you understand him to be referring to?
Everyone that were there except the special branch. As he made no mention of them.
Minutes after, Thomas recalled seeing Deputy Superintendent Clifton Davis and Assistant Superintendent Ali from the Tactical Service Unit arriving at the location. They too ignored his presence and proceeded into the building.
They were telling the persons in the building to get out.
But you were senior to both men,
Both of them.
and they didn't say anything to
They
you.
didn't say anything.
They saw you
Yes.
and ignored you.
And they ignored it.
But did you speak?
Yes. At that stage, I reminded them that I am the senior person on the ground.
After he reminded them that he was the most senior officer on the ground, they left and returned with 15 fully armed ranks. According to Thomas, only the Commissioner of Police, who at the time was James, had the authority to dispatch the TSU. According to Thomas, he tried to contact James several times, but his calls went unanswered.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes,
You said you made efforts to contact the commissioner.
yes.
For what purpose were you calling the commissioner then?
Tell the commissioner that based on the action of Mr. Davis, that I'm no longer in charge of that commission. And I was seeking permission to leave the premises.
Can I ask you,
You wanted to tell him that as a result of the presence of Mr. Davis
And the right here.
and its team, you wanted permission to leave the building.
Yes.
Did you ever get the opportunity to convey that to him?
No, he did not answer.
can I ask you, did you try calling the commissioner once, twice,
Several times.
several times? And with the same result?
Same result.
You did not get through to him.
I called him on more than one telephone.
Thomas also revealed that there appeared to be an attempt to tamper with the data by the GCOM Information Technology Officer, Enrique Livan.
On my arrival there with the team, there were multiple reports coming in, and all the reporters were saying the same thing, that someone was in the computer which they later identified, who was a part of the tabulation process, and he was seen, he left that table, entered into another room, and he was seen actually interfering with the data on the flashlight.
So, would you tell us who made these complaints to you?
I can recall one Mr. Josh Kanai. I can recall a representative from the EU, European Union. I can recall that, and there were several others. At that stage, there was some discussion. My intention was to have the computer and the flashlight in custody of the police, which we tried to do that in the first instance. He asked for transportation assistance to get to Ashland Building.
And did you make those arrangements?
That was made for him.
And how long after that discussion via telephone did he arrive at the building?
Roughly about 30 to 45 minutes thereafter.
And that's the bottom line.